What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Murata Media. And today I'm going to be doing a review of a movie that I have been looking forward to for quite some time, Brightburn. Produced by James Gunn, this movie tells the story of Tori and Kyle Breyer, a couple in Kansas that's trying to have a child, but they're just unable to. Then one night, a mysterious object falls out of the sky. When they go to investigate, they find a baby boy inside of it and choose to raise him as their own. Then growing up, the boy, whose name is Brandon, discovers that he has these strange powers that make him invincible, give him the ability to fly, laser vision, all of that, and he decides to use his powers for evil. So in other words, this movie is an evil Superman origin story. And when I first saw the trailer for this movie, I was already sold on the concept alone. But now that I have seen it, I am a little bit disappointed by it. That being said, there are things in this movie that I did like. First off is the acting. Elizabeth Banks and David Denman both do a phenomenal job as Brandon's parents, and Jackson A. Dunn, who plays Brandon, also does a great job. Another great aspect of this movie is that it's really violent. In fact, it's so violent, I was shocked to see just how bloody it was, because most, if not all, of the deaths in this movie are pretty graphic. There are several times as I was watching that I actually cringed because I could almost feel like the pain that the characters were feeling. Like, one scene that's in the trailers, there's a character who gets glass stuck in her eye and a little piece of shard is just sticking out and she pulls it out of her eye, and the entire time I was watching that scene I was just sitting there like, oh man. Another thing that Brightburn did really well are its effects. This movie has pretty phenomenal special effects. There is one shot, however, at the end of the movie that's clearly green screen. I mean, we knew that going in, but I think it could have looked a lot more convincing than it actually was. With the effects being so good, I would have guessed that this movie was made for maybe $20 to $30 million, but I was shocked to realize that it was only made for $6 million. And I was really impressed by that. The fact that they were able to have so many scenes with these over-the-top special effects, and they did it with such little money. That's something that you really have to admire. But another thing the movie does really well is the creepiness factor. In the parts where it's supposed to be tense and creepy, it actually nails those, and it gives you this sense of dread, kind of like how you would see in a slasher movie. That, however, unfortunately, was the extent of the good things that I liked in this movie. As I mentioned, Brandon decides to use these powers for a more evil approach rather than good. But it's never really explained why Brandon chose to be evil. It kind of just happens. There's no gradual build up to him being evil. Like, say he has a thought about doing something evil, but then he tells himself, no, I can't do that. I'm not like that. That's wrong. But then he tries it just so he can get the experience of it, and then he tells himself that he's never going to do it again, but deep down inside he realizes that he actually kind of liked it, and then it kind of just goes up from there. I think that would have been a way more interesting way to discuss why he chose to be evil in the first place rather than just making it happen. And another thing I wish that they discussed is why he chose to be evil. In the trailer, it's kind of implied that he's bullied a lot and he's kind of a social outcast at school. Even that isn't really true. Like, one kid calls him a maggot and another one calls him a pervert. Like, he wasn't beaten, he wasn't picked on or anything like that. He was just called a couple names. And in the movie, the pod that he came to Earth in starts talking to him, and the pod starts telling him, take the world, take the world, take the world. And it's never really explained why the pod is talking to him, or why the pod wants him to take over the world. It all just kinda happens for the sake of happening. The pod is literally just used as a MacGuffin. And something else that I wish that they had gone over is Brandon's mental state, because he draws these really demented drawings in his notebook, and I mean, it's pretty clear that he's not all right in the head. And as most of the things in this movie, it's not explained. We don't know the full extent of his mental state or why he's like that. It's just dropped on us, and I guess we have to accept it and be like, okay, he's just that way because. If the movie delved deeper into its antagonist and we understood his motivations, his mental state and why he does the things that he does, then this movie really could have been fantastic. The movie itself is only an hour and a half, and I think it could have benefited greatly if it was maybe a half hour to 45 minutes longer. And this is kind of a nitpicky thing, but the movie has a lot of pans where it pans from one character and then it pans away from them and then it pans back to the character and Brandon is like behind them. The movie does this quite a bit, but I think they did this enough to the point where they were kind of self-aware about it because it just happens way too much. But other than that, guys, Brightburn was a major disappointment for me. It had a lot of great things going for it, like the characters, the effects, the violence, and the concept alone kept it afloat for me, but it was just bogged down by bad pacing and writing and some tedious horror cliches. That being said, this movie was not awful, it was just okay. Brightburn is a movie that has a phenomenal concept, but it doesn't really capitalize on it. And overall, I'd give Brightburn a 5 out of 10. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Did you see Brightburn? If you did, let me know what you thought about it. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Were you just as disappointed with it as I was? If you like my review, then slap a like on it and be sure to subscribe. Other than that, I hope you all have a phenomenal day and I will see you guys next time.